we live?
Go on.
We are.
All right.
All right. Welcome everybody to the March 19th Library Board meeting. First on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Do we have a second?
This is Jenna, I second.
Okay. All in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Oh, I forgot to take attendance. I just realized that. Okay, sorry. Perfect. Well, that's great. Let's also take attendance while we're here too. We'll start over on the side.
I'm Wanda Manglecook.
Okay.
Kristen Shipper.
Hey, Amy Oren.
Jenna Reno.
Hannah James.
Paul Jensen.
Okay, and then we also
John
have.
Rodenbiker is online. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, John. All right. Then we'll move on to number 2. We have minutes from our February 27th meeting. Do we have a motion for approval?
I motion to approve.
Okay,
I will second.
great. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed?
Yes.
All right. Wonderful. Next, we have public comment. No public today. Moving on to staff report with Megan, number 4.
Hello, you have my full report in your packet. I'll give you some highlights. First, I want to talk about winter reading program numbers. I usually don't talk too much about program numbers here because you see those in the statistical report. But since we just finished the end of our winter reading at the end of last month, we had 1,104 registered readers and 635 completed challenges. That is a 47% increase over last year's numbers.
Oh, nice job.
So some upcoming programs. There is another eclipse coming up in the beginning of April. So at the end of March, we have a children's event to give kids a chance to learn about the sun and moon with stories and hands-on activity about how the eclipse happens. This event is both at the Main and Carlson Library and does need pre-registration. We will also have eclipse glasses ready to be picked up at all of our library locations during the week prior to the eclipse. We'll also have take and make crafts and other eclipse related activities to give out with those glasses that people can do at home during the event. The seed library for this year has started. That started earlier this week. While supplies last, we will have seeds available at the main library and the Carlson Library. There are flowers, vegetables, herbs, all sorts of seeds. We do ask people that they limit themselves to 5 packets so that other patrons also have the chance to get some. To go along with that, we have a seed starting workshop on March 22nd at the Carlson Library. This is geared toward beginner gardeners learning how to start seeds indoors so that eventually when it gets consistently warm, they can be moved outside. We have 2 tech events coming up. We have virtual reality for beginners on March 23rd. So that gives people a chance to learn a little bit about virtual reality. We have a MetaQuest VR headset that people can try out. That same week, we have Professor Dennis Cooley from NDSU's Philosophy and Ethics Department coming to talk about ChatGPT and AI and the ethical challenges that come along with this technology, and then also what the advantages are. Both of those events are open for teens and adults. A couple other things we have coming up. We have a volunteer fair at the main library this coming Saturday. We have, I think, 20 or so organizations coming that they'll have tables about what opportunities are available with their organization. Also at the beginning of April, where we will start accepting entries for the Northern Focus Photography Program, or project. So these are meant to be pictures taken in North Dakota and Minnesota. The entries get put in an exhibit in the main library in that front foyer area, and the winning entry becomes the cover of the Northern Narratives book that comes out. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Do you guys do something different this year that you think got more people to participate in completing the winter reading program?
I'm not sure. I think the numbers have gone up little by little. I know people really like the Beanstack program. It's really, the app is really easy to use. And I think there's been more of a push of having both adults and children participate. It's not just a children's program, but everybody in the family can do it.
Yeah, cool. Any other questions for Megan? No? All right, thank you. Next, we have the director's report.
Yeah, per your packet, you have it there. One really good note in terms of the main library shade replacement project went really, really well. And there was only a few items that had to be looked at after the install. And they did a tremendous job, very responsive. And as you see, Maine's a very large building in terms of window coverage. And they really did a tremendous job, given how inintrusive they were. And it was basically one gentleman taking out, installing the entire building. Obviously, they had an electrician to assist in terms of that, but we're basically done with that, and it's really exciting.
Thanks.
If anybody has any other questions in regards to the report.
Okay. Any other questions? No? All right, we have no unfinished business, so we're going to move on to number 7, new business. And we're going to start with our e-content collections overview.
Please introduce yourselves.
Excuse my cough.
I'm Ben Doiber. I'm the Electronic Resources and Systems Librarian.
And I am Jenna Lee Cannonwisher, the Collections Development and Technical Services Manager. Pull up our PowerPoint there.
I will start with the history portion. We first started with Overdrive, which now is identified to most patrons with the Libby app. In 2011, we joined the North Dakota Digital Consortium, which was started in West Fargo the year before. And that is a partnership with libraries all over the state of North Dakota, all the public libraries, not all the public libraries, but many of them, and the North Dakota State Library. It's available to all FPL patrons. As part of augmenting that, in 2017, we added Hoopla, and Hoopla is available only to patrons with Fargo addresses. It is a slightly different model. It's a pay-per-use model. So rather than buying an item like we would buy a book on Overdrive, all the items are available and people pay when they check out, or we pay when people check out. And then most recently we added Canopy last year in this late summer
Yep.
or even fall
September.
of 2023, and that is a video-focused platform, and that's also, because it's pay-per-use, limited to Fargo customers.
And then just to talk a little bit more about the lending models. So like Ben kind of said, the Libby/Overdrive, patrons can check out 5 things at a time and have 8 holds at a time. So those materials are generally 1 copy, 1 user. So when we purchase an ebook, one person can have that, and when they're finished, the next person can have that, very similar to how physical materials work. In the case of Libby and Overdrive, librarians select the materials that are on that platform for the most part, and that's either myself or a few other librarians at Fargo Public, or as part of the consortium, libraries across the state also purchase, because we all kind of purchase into the same pool, and patrons check out of that same pool as well. We can talk more about some of the different licensing models further in here. And then for Hoopla, as Ben said, that is that pay per circ model. In this, we recently reduced that slightly, so now patrons have 6 checkouts per month. So that's, again, just per patron. They can check out 6 titles or 6 different things each month. And in that case, for the most part, Hoopla controls selection through their licenses with different publishers. So they will generally be big groups of things in there. Librarians aren't generally selecting anything for that. We can make changes as we need to, but for the most part, that's Hoopla. And then Canopy uses a tickets model. So that's 15 tickets per month for patrons. Generally, that works out to about 5 items, I would say.
5 or 6.
Yeah, each month. And then again, with that, librarians aren't selecting those materials. That's Canopy selection through their different vendors and publishers. And as Ben said, that's that pay per circ model, similar to Hoopla. This is just kind of a graph to show our circulation over the last about 10 years. So the bottom line, the very red line on the bottom of the first graph there is ebooks. The orange one is physical materials, and then the very top line is the total materials. So you can kind of see how ebooks have been steadily increasing. And I really like this graph because it shows the really like obvious trends for the summer. We always peak in like the summer months, but it just is very consistent. And you can see us growing back kind of to where we were, at least as far as total circulation pre-COVID. And then, yeah, you see
COVID on there
You
too,
very
right? I
much
was like,
see
why is
COVID.
there a dip there?
Yeah.
Just
And then,
kidding.
yeah. And then the second graph is just, excuse me, kind of flipped. It shows the percentage of e-content that is our overall circulation. So again, you can see during COVID, that was the only thing available really for a few months there as we were closed. And it's just kind of increased after that. And then this is the e-content circulation by platform. And this is just for the last 2 years approximately. And so Overdrive is the top line, the orange line, that comprises the majority of our e-content circulation. The red line is Hoopla, and then the gray line is Canopy, which was, yeah, it looks like August. And then the second graph breaks out Hoopla and Canopy just because otherwise Overdrive is just overwhelmingly huge and you can't see that increase in Hoopla that we've had. So overall in the last 2 years, Overdrive has grown up approximately 66%, which is huge. And then Hoopla even has grown about 50% over the last 2 years. So both of those are really increasing quite a bit.
I threw this in right before the meeting because I think it really highlights the change that e-content has brought us in terms of how we develop and by format. So the green line is ebooks and the blue line is audiobooks.
E-audiobooks.
E-audiobooks, yeah. And you can really see how the shift to a different distribution model and a different consumption model has really driven a change in the way people consume that content. If you had asked me a decade ago if audiobooks would ever be more popular than books, I would have said no. But I think that is our fastest growing format by far.
Yes.
It's also the only format still where electronic circulation exceeds physical circulation. We crossed that in about 2015.
So this is just our budgets and how much we spent in the last year, and then our budget for this year. We have tried to move more to Overdrive and whatnot. And then also those bottom numbers there, you can see the average cost of books and audiobooks. Hoopla obviously is kind of an outlier there, but that is our average cost per circ. So when people check something out from Hoopla, that's the very bottom line, it costs the library approximately $2 per circulation. So.
It's actually up. This is 2023, if I recall, and that's actually up a little bit again this year. I'm actually going to back up real quick. One thing I'll note here too is just you can see the difference in the percentage of our collection development budget that is going to ebooks is larger than the percentage of circulation, which I really do think highlights that challenge year to year in meeting the demand of ebooks just because of the cost.
Yeah, you can see that Overdrive materials are quite expensive overall. Like the average, I kind of found that for the last 2 years, I just kind of averaged everything we purchased, how much we spent, and it worked out to about $40, which is pricey compared to a physical book, but we don't have as much overhead in some ways
And
too.
the key thing also is when they discuss the licensing, how
Yeah.
those individual costs compared in conjunction with the licensing, where that becomes a conundrum.
Yeah.
So Overdrive, are you paying more of like a lump sum for all the materials that are there versus then Hoopla and Canopy, it's just a per usage? Or is that?
So with Overdrive, myself and other librarians are going in, and I do choose the books that I purchase for each month.
Okay.
A lot of it will be because it is such high usage. A lot of it is based on just demand.
Okay.
So when there's 40 holds on a thing, I am buying more copies of that to meet that demand. Oh,
Okay.
and then also bestsellers, things like that as well. So, but that is, Overdrive is very much a selection process for each
Okay.
individual title, similar to our physical collection.
Okay.
I'll cover the terms. I will let Jenna Lee cover license models, but just a few things just so you're aware of the terminology. Briefly discussed North Dakota Digital Consortium at the beginning. That's the partnership of North Dakota Public Libraries that has been in place since about 2011. That involves all of us contributing a certain amount of funds into a shared pool, and the consortium selects those materials using those funds. So we contribute about $9,000 a year.
$9,000.
And it's based on library size, is tiered based on library size. And that selection could be from any library. So for example, New Rockford Public Library for several years has been selecting fiction. I couldn't name all the selectors right now, but it's spread out across the state. It's a great opportunity for smaller libraries to get access to a larger collection and also for them to participate in the process. So all of the larger libraries are expected to fill some sort of role over the years. So whether that's chairing and coordinating all the different libraries, working with the vendor, making sure that important things get communicated, whether that's handling collection development or doing selection or whatever. Everybody's expected to contribute something at some point. We chaired, I think I chaired back in 2012 and 2013.
I've selected fiction at one point for the
Right.
consortium.
So, yeah, we all try to participate in the process, but we really do want to get other libraries, not just let Bismarck and Fargo and Grand Forks kind of dominate that process.
And then also, like as Ben said, our contribution to the consortium is $9,000, but obviously we have that much larger budget that we put in on top of that $9,000 that is selected by Fargo Public Library librarians too.
And that is the Advantage budget. So Advantage is a way for libraries to contribute their own funds to buy materials for their library. We do about a quarter of the circulation in the consortium, and we do put in about a quarter of the money. We worked that out last year. So Advantage allows us to spend our money, or the Fargo Library's money, to purchase materials. There are a couple of ways you can handle Advantage. You can take Advantage materials and lock them to your patrons, or you can share your Advantage materials with the consortium. What we do is we share all our materials with the consortium, but our customers have priority for the hold list.
Oh, okay.
So if we are purchasing something and a Fargo customer is on hold for it, they have first crack. But if it's available, anybody from the state can check it
So
out.
is that someone physically that has to go in there and do that, or is that like part of the technology?
Part of the technology.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
So if anyone is a Libby user, if you ever see your wait list suddenly jump up, or now they're saying that 2 lanes thing, that's because of the Advantage model.
Okay.
Because if I order something, it goes to our patrons first. If Grand Forks orders something, it goes to their patrons first, as far as I know.
Okay.
Going to licensing.
Yeah, so there's quite a few different licensing models with Libby. These are things that publishers have set up with Overdrive, with the company. So one copy, one user, like I talked about, is similar to a physical book. We purchase a copy of it for, $30, $60, whatever, and then it gets to be used by one patron at a time. And when they're done, it goes on to the next patron. Holds work similar to physical books and whatnot. So there are a few different things within that one copy, one user. There's perpetual license, which means we keep it, I wouldn't say forever because it's the platform that we're working with, but essentially forever as long as we're using Overdrive and the publishers agree to it, we have that license. We keep that book. Most things though, most publishers have now gone to, especially with ebooks, a metered access model. So that can be things that like by checkouts. So I purchase a book and it is our book essentially until 26 checkouts have happened, let's say. Or sometimes it's by time. So I purchase a book, now we have it for 12 months or 24 months. So those licensing models allow publishers to kind of, have it work more similar to a physical book. A physical book doesn't last forever. It has so many checkouts before it starts to fall apart and whatnot. It's a balance.
So then you have to renew that basically then?
Yeah,
Okay.
it expires, so
Yeah,
to speak.
okay.
And then, if we choose to, we can renew or purchase it
Repurchase.
again. Actually, it's not
Repurchase.
even a renew, it's a purchase. You have to
Okay.
go back in and find those titles. So yeah, like we said, we don't really weed overdrive, so to speak, just materials expire as those licenses are up. And I think if you go to the next slide,
And there are other licensing models. This isn't complete. There's, for example, there's checkouts or time, whichever comes first. But these are by far the most common.
yeah, and I think this kind of shows. So this is different. So I looked at the last just 6 months just to get kind of an idea of what was purchased. So this is things purchased by the Fargo Public Library in the last 6 months, just the different licensing models. So you'll see that, let's see, audiobooks are the orange, ebooks are the red. So there's quite a few audiobooks have that perpetual license where we keep it forever, so to speak. Not as many ebooks, but the metered access options are by far the most common, especially that 24 months and 12 months. I will say a lot of the licenses give me the option to do either 12 months or 24 months, and it's usually just a straight up doubling of the amount. So it's either $12.50, let's say, for 12 months, or $25 for 24 months, something along those lines. And then I won't get into it too much, but there's like 100 checkout concurrent user option, and that's way less common, way less available for me to look at. But for things that have a super high holds list, it is nice sometimes, like Fourth Wing, the audiobook, had an option to do that, and that was nice to just kind of work through a whole big holds list in that case.
Here's some other options that we have regionally. So Lake Agassiz, Moorhead Library, they have both Hoopla and Libby. They don't allow non-residents to use any of their electronic materials, but they do have both platforms available. West Fargo has Libby. They're also a digital consortium member, so they see the same collection that we see, though, again, their customers don't get the first crack at holds that we purchase or items we purchase. And they recently dropped Hoopla last week. Maybe
I think it's happening in May, but they announced it.
Yeah, they announced it quite recently that they're dropping Hoopla. And they also recently, I think late last year, limited electronic resources to residents only. And then the North Dakota State Library, which is open to all North Dakota residents, has a very limited canopy collection. We can talk about that if you want, but there's a complicated relationship there. We have access to all the things that North Dakota State Library purchased as part of our canopy subscription, plus the things we have access to. But if somebody's a North Dakota State Library card holder, they can get access to a limited canopy collection. And then they also are members of the digital consortium as well. Oh, that's it.
Any questions?
Do you know why West Fargo decided to drop their Hoopla app?
I can, I think, I haven't talked to them directly, but there's been other larger libraries like Chicago Public and a few others that have also dropped it. I think the cost per circ model is difficult to manage because as the platform becomes more popular, it becomes much more expensive. And, library budgets are finite. You don't go out, well, let's go out and get more revenue and it's like those things are set. So it's kind of a, double-edged sword. You have this thing, it becomes really popular, people expect it, it becomes too expensive.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, this is something we're looking at, not in terms of dropping, but we're seeing that same kind of growth and popularity and cost. And how do we meter it and manage it, or economize access that we can keep it within the budget that we have? If you guys want
I think.
No,
I
go
think
ahead.
too, Hoopla has gotten a lot more popular content in my experience in the last 5 years, and so that means more patrons using it. Some of that content is more expensive per use. I think we have seen that cost per cert grow a little bit, but I think in general, like Hoopla has a better selection, which is great, and then also hard, as Tim said, with the cost part. It's harder to control that cost compared to the other platforms.
Also, I have the graph up, but one thing that is clear with Hoopla Overdrive, which is we're getting a lot less circulation. Oh, thank you. A lot less circulation out. So if we back up here, and you can see the difference here in circulation between Hoopla, or between Overdrive and Hoopla. So Hoopla is that red line on the bottom and Overdrive is the orange one. So Overdrive's circulating a lot more stuff, more than twice, 3 times as much stuff probably. Whereas it's taking up just over twice the budget.
Yeah.
So again, it's a proportionality issue. Hoopla's a lot of money for what we're getting from it. And I think what we're getting from it is valuable, especially because it has audiobooks and it helps us meet demand for really popular items. But it's,
Because I don't think we mentioned that Hoopla would never have a waiting list then, if people
Yeah.
aren't familiar with it. Overdrive often has waiting lists for popular materials, but if there's a popular book on Hoopla, people can get it right then because of the different models. So there is value in that.
Yeah, I know. I find myself using Hoopla a lot more because it is immediate and I don't have to
Yeah.
wait for anything. And I usually am on the wait list for my
For a
Overdrive or Libby books.
yes.
Yeah.
And I would agree that they're getting more popular items on Hoopla too. And I thought when we were talking about this at our last meeting, this was so interesting because I didn't realize there was this pay per use. And I was very honest about how I would often check things out on Hoopla and would not actually use them. And now I feel bad about that. So I apologize, everyone. But I think that also makes sense too when you had talked about your reasoning for taking down the amount of checkouts for Hoopla, a little while back ago too. Just having this insight, I feel like, is very helpful. And just being aware of it makes me a little bit more intentional about what it is that I'm looking at using personally. But I thought all this was really interesting. Just trying to see how this part of our library works. Like we see the physical things inside our library. I think we all understand what it's like to buy things like that, but knowing this information was really valuable. Is there any other questions or comments?
Thank you, Ben. Thank you,
Yeah,
Jenna
thank
Lee.
you so much for coming
Yeah.
in. Appreciate it.
Are you gonna grab?
All right. Now we're moving on to letter B, registration policy review.
Yes, again, kind of doing due diligence to work through policies that haven't been reviewed in 3 years, and registration is one of them. If there's any questions,
Might I just say that my property value has gone up considerably. And as we can see here, non-resident cars are valid for a fee of $20 per year. It is set by the board of directors based on the library's per household revenue from property taxes.
to put some,
Find anybody who actually,
well, to put that in perspective, in the last 2 years, the total number of people that would fit that to pay the $20 was 25 people.
all right.
So it's not a tremendous amount of folks. We do have non-resident folks, obviously from Lake Agassiz, West Fargo, state of North Dakota. But those two, if they have their West Fargo card or they have their Lake Agassiz card, we give them a Fargo card for free because it's so much easier.
I'm just nitpicking, so.
But it was, I just thought, well, heck, how many folks are really involved in that? And it didn't turn out to be a lot of folks. And
Right,
yeah,
okay.
All right, do we have a motion for approval for action letter B?
I'll make the
I move
motion.
approval of the policy as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. Moving on to letter C, staff identification policy.
it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the staff identification policy.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Yes.
Any opposed? All right, moving down to letter D, travel and continuing education policy review.
Yeah, if there's any questions, this is always really helpful when we're identifying different staff for different trainings and or conventions and this kind of thing. So it's good to have.
Okay, any questions? Do we have a motion for approval?
I'll move.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
Oh, all right.
No. Please
Does that
just
still pass?
Yeah,
Or do we have, no? Okay. Oh,
you can clarify John's.
yeah. John, were you opposing this?
No, I said yes.
Oh, you said yes. Oh, okay. We were just
He's
delayed.
affirming.
Comes,
Firm, yes. Okay. I was like, oh.
comes
Now, there's a
later.
lag between when you're on the phone. There's a lag.
Yeah.
Yes, I was like, oh, interesting. Okay, moving on to number 8, the statistical report.
Yeah, looking at usage, again, strong numbers across the board. Starting out with visits, you can see, especially year to date, we're up, February was, that nice weather really helped a lot. You can see we're up 15% after February 23. And then year to date with January, February up 12%. So it's a little over 7,000 more visits. Programming attendance, yeah, kind of going back to Megan's comments, strong. And 2023 was a record year for program attendance, and we're starting strong here in 2024. Volunteer hours is strong, you see that. Internet sign up is up 26% year to date over last year. Electronic activity up 18% over last year in terms of hits on the website. Again, circulation looking really strong, up almost 15% over last February, which is an increase of over 10,000 more items circulated. And you can see the impacts of the electronic non-print up at the top of the second page as per our conversation. Looking good year to date, just over 14% over last year. So yeah, strong numbers, strong attendance, very happy. A lot of hard work from the staff.
Great. All right, do we have any questions at all about usage? No? All right, moving on to the financials.
Starting out with the donation, we received just over, you see that $23 from Benevity, which is a payroll deduction donation company, and $25 for the tea for tasting. On the expenditure side, Crafternoons for $132, and purchase of books from Rotary Money, $197, and from the Friends for the staff recognition Way to Go cards of $30. So thank you, Friends, for that. On the donations and expense, in terms of operating, 17% of the year lapse through. We're just under 20%. Again, a lot of encumbrances and pre-pay of maintenance contracts at the beginning of the year impacting that number. And in terms of revenue, you can see on the last page there, total through the 2 months, just over 6,000.
Any questions on the financials? No. All right, moving on to number 9, Friends of the Library. No. All right, that brings us to number 10. Our next meeting will be April 16th, and we are adjourned. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, everybody.